Kurt Busch believed his time in NASCAR was quietly winding down, until a single sentence from Michael Jordan reshaped how he viewed his entire racing life. After more than 20 years in the sport, NASCAR had given him everything a driver could hope for: victories, a championship, and respect. It had also left its mark. When the 2020 season ended, Busch was no longer the volatile young driver once feared on pit road. He had become a seasoned veteran, a survivor, and someone privately questioning how much longer he could keep going. Then came a phone call that changed everything. On the other end was Michael Jordan, not the worldwide legend or six-time NBA champion, but a fierce competitor who saw something of himself in Kurt Busch. Busch later said that conversation nearly overwhelmed him. One line from Jordan captured his entire NASCAR journey more clearly than any statistic ever could. To understand why that moment carried so much weight, you have to understand who Kurt Busch truly was. Busch entered NASCAR with blistering speed and unfiltered emotion. From the start, he was fast, aggressive, and controversial. In the early 2000s, his temper was as much a part of his reputation as his talent. He won races. He claimed the 2004 Cup Series championship. But he also damaged relationships. His intensity often crossed boundaries, and the sport struggled to contain him. Teams changed, trust fractured. Busch moved from organization to organization, sometimes rebuilding his image, sometimes setting himself back again. Through it all, one thing remained constant. He raced with total commitment. He never held back. He never drove to protect his reputation. Every lap was personal. That mindset sometimes hurt him, but it also kept him competitive long after many expected him to disappear. As the years passed, Busch evolved. The fire was still there, but it was tempered by experience. He became more controlled, more thoughtful, and increasingly valuable as a leader. Especially to younger drivers. His victory in the 2017 Daytona 500 wasn't just another win. It was proof that he could still deliver when the spotlight was brightest. Even so, the passage of time weighed on him. When the chance came to join a brand new NASCAR team co-owned by Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, Busch hesitated. 23XI Racing had no track record, and new teams often fail. Busch had already lived through the full range of NASCAR's highs and lows. That uncertainty led to his conversation with Jordan. Jordan didn't want Busch because of his resume or his championship ring. He wanted him because of how he competed. Jordan told Busch that he raced the same way Jordan played basketball, straight from the heart. The words hit harder than any financial offer ever could. Busch later admitted they nearly brought him to tears. For someone who had spent years being doubted and criticized, that recognition mattered deeply. Jordan wasn't praising perfection. He was acknowledging intensity, commitment, and the refusal to ever give less than everything. He didn't view Busch's past as a problem. He saw it as evidence. That realization changed how Busch viewed his entire career. The mistakes, the confrontations, the controversies weren't signs of failure. They were proof that he cared too deeply to be passive. That belief convinced him to take the leap and join 23XI Racing. When Busch arrived, the team was still finding its identity. Bubba Wallace was the focal point. Busch became the stabilizer. He brought experience, credibility, and urgency. He helped define the team's culture and delivered a crucial win at Kansas Speedway in 2002, one of the most meaningful victories in the organization's early history. It confirmed that the gamble had paid off. Busch made 20 starts with 23XI Racing, each one reinforcing the faith Jordan had placed in him. But the story didn't end the way anyone expected. During qualifying at Pocono in 2022, Busch suffered a concussion. The injury sidelined him indefinitely. Weeks turned into months, and recovery stalled. Eventually, it became clear his driving career was over. There was no farewell tour, no final lap, just an abrupt ending. For a driver who raced purely on emotion, stepping away was devastating. Yet Busch handled it with a level of maturity that reflected his growth. He stayed connected to the team, mentored younger drivers, and remained a respected presence in the garage. The fire still burned, it simply no longer had an outlet. When it was announced that Kurt Busch would be inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2006, it felt like a moment of closure, not just because of his wins or championship, but because the sport finally embraced the full complexity of his journey. Busch was never simple. He wasn't always likable, but he was impossible to overlook. That's why Michael Jordan understood him. Jordan's greatness was built on obsession, intensity, and an unwillingness to compromise, traits that also made him polarizing. He recognized those same qualities in Busch. When Jordan told Busch that he raced from the heart, it wasn't empty praise. It was one competitor acknowledging another. That single sentence captured what years of analysis never could. Kurt Busch wasn't motivated by image or approval. He was driven by emotion, pride, and the need to prove himself every time he climbed into the car. That mindset created both his greatest triumphs and his hardest lessons. It led him to championships and into controversy. It kept him relevant long after others from his era had faded. And ultimately, it earned him a place in the Hall of Fame. His story isn't about flawlessness, it's about persistence, growth, and learning to turn chaos into purpose. His connection with Michael Jordan wasn't about branding or headlines, it was about mutual respect. Two competitors from different worlds recognizing the same inner. When Busch looks back on his career, that phone call stands out not because of the voice on the other end of the line, but because of what it represented. It came from someone who saw past the reputation, past the controversies, past the rough edges, and understood the competitor underneath. Someone who didn't ask him to soften, didn't ask him to rewrite his story, and didn't ask him to become anything other than who he had always been. For the first time, Busch felt truly seen for the way he fought, for the way he cared, and for the way he gave everything to the sport. Even when it cost him. For Kurt Busch, that kind of understanding meant everything. It carried more weight than trophies or contracts ever could, because it gave his career context. It told him that the emotion, the intensity, and the fire he brought into every race were not flaws to be erased, but qualities that defined him. It validated every lap he ran, every mistake he made under pressure, and every comeback that followed disappointment. It reframed his journey not as a career of wild swings between success and failure, but as a continuous act of belief, effort, and refusal to quit. The wins mattered. The championship mattered. But what mattered most was the realization that none of it had been wasted. Not the failures, not the suspensions, not the moments when doubt crept in and the sport seemed ready to move on without him. Each setback became proof that Busch kept